Then I'll read, you guys say, the chair or the co-chair can say who they are, what meeting this is, and then I'll read the notice, and then we'll go forward after that.
All right, sounds good.
Go ahead, someone.
This is the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I said all the words right. This is the Pedestrian Advisory Committee Infrastructure and Engineering Subcommittee meeting on December 17th, 2020. I am co-chair Aaron Berger and Millicent.
Okay, this is Millicent. I'll read the, the notice. This meeting may involve the remote participation by members, either by telephone or other electronic means, due to the local public health emergency, novel coronavirus pandemic, pursuant to the provisions of Minnesota statutes, section 13D.021.
Thank you. Let's see if we can go around and do introductions. So I'm Aaron Berger. I'm a PAC member, and I'll pass it to Abigail.
Hi, Abigail Johnson, PAC member.
Amber.
Amber Klein with Hennepin County. I'm here to talk about the Osseo Road project.
Sonia.
Sorry about that. Sonia Brisas, Metro Transit, non-voting member.
Christopher Hofer.
PAC member.
Matthew.
Matthew Dudall, Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator, Public Works.
Millicent.
Millicent Flowers, Public Works.
Kelsey.
Hi, Kelsey Fote, Minneapolis Public Works.
Amy.
Hi, Amy Morgan, Minneapolis Public Works.
Peter.
Peter Vader, PAC member.
Jeff.
Hi, Jeff Rhoda with AECOM, consultant for the Osseo Road project.
Katie.
Katie White, Minneapolis Public Works.
Christian.
Christian Zimmerman, Minneapolis Public Works.
There's a telephone number here that I take to be Julia.
Yep, Julia Curran, PAC member.
And Barbara Olson is here too.
Thank you. David. I see a David Elvin. Aaron Tog. And Mackenzie.
Are they here?
Says others. Oh, well, it is never as smooth as an in-person meeting. No. Well, the first item on the agenda is the Osseo Road Reconstruction, which is going at 30% and is presented by Kelsey Folk and Amber Klein.
Thanks, guys. For Kelsey, I don't know if you wanted to introduce or say anything, or
I'm happy to hand it over to you, Amber.
Thanks, Kelsey. I will. Let me get my screen up here. You guys see the presentation?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Perfect. So, like I said, my name is Amber Klein. I am the Hennepin County Project Manager for the Osseo Road Reconstruction Project. The county is leading the project along with our consultant, Jeff Rhoda from AECOM, along with our other project partners, Minneapolis, we have Kelsey, and then the Minneapolis Park and Rec Board and Metro Transit. So our project on Osseo Road runs from Penn Avenue all the way up to 49th Avenue, which is part of the County Road 152 corridor. This piece is a connector between the newly finished Brooklyn Boulevard reconstruction project in Brooklyn Center and then the soon to start construction Weber 44 project. Currently, Osseo Road is a 3-lane road section with an on-street bikeway. There's an existing sidewalk along the east side of the roadway with portions of walk along the west. In this reconstruction project, we intend to enhance the safety, mobility, accessibility, and convenience for all corridor users, including pedestrians, bicyclists, transit users, motorists, commercial, emergency, and maintenance vehicles. So we are currently at a 30% design level and are looking for city concurrence of the layout so that we can move forward with final design in 2021 and construction to start in 2022. The initial design was presented back in July via virtual open house and here at the August BAC meeting. We've also met with the Minneapolis PAC, the Hennepin County's BAC, Council Member Cunningham, and the Victoria Neighborhood Association. So after reviewing the feedback from the community and working with our project partners, we've made some modifications to the typical sections and the geometry, which I will be presenting to you today. So a few of the general changes to the design include the addition of many new ADA ped ramps and crossings, the striping of the trail, and the pedestrian level lighting added to the typical sections. And the change of Russell Avenue from a right-in, right-out to a full closure. I also wanted to note, since we last met, a dynamic speed sign was installed on the southbound side leading into the Penn Avenue curve. The city also relocated their advanced warning sign for this curve and did some tree trimming to help with the sight distance at the Penn Avenue curve. With Osseo Road being a very diverse corridor with the businesses, the regional trail, and residential area, we kept the corridor separated into these 6 major configurations or typical sections. The major change that we've made is the separating the multi-use trail and putting the trail on the west side and the adjusting 2 sidewalks along either side of Osseo Road. So with that, I will start on the north end and we'll kind of run through some of the existing or our proposed typical section. So the first, starting on the north end, in this left typical section, we are matching into the existing roadway with the 2 11-foot travel lanes and both the left and right turn lanes at the 49th Avenue intersection. We are adding a 5-foot grass boulevard. We'll be provided with a 10-foot trail and the 6-foot sidewalk with a 1-foot detectable edge between on the west side. That 1 foot is and 6-foot sidewalk on the opposing side, also separated by a grass boulevard. And then on the north typical, or this right side typical section is our bridge section, where we're taking the existing 3-lane section and continuing with 2 11-foot travel lanes and outside 5-foot shoulders, which again, it did not change. The part that did change is the 10-foot trail and 6-foot walk, separated with a foot detectable, and then the 6-foot sidewalk on the opposing side. As we continue into the corridor, we move into our main section, the section A, the screen piece. In this section, we were replacing the in-place 3-lane sections and outside bike boulevards with 2 11-foot travel lanes, which is remaining the same from previous. We are adjusting to the 6-foot grass boulevard on either side of the roadway with a 10-foot trail on the 6-foot sidewalk, again separated by that 1-foot detectable edge between them, and then the 6-foot sidewalk on the opposing side. Here we have a rendering of this section is what we are. So we are looking south down Osseo Road at 47th Avenue. At this intersection, we are showing the proposed BRT station, the RRFB. You can also see the trail and the walk separated by that foot detectable edge, and then grass boulevards on either side. As we continue down, we now will run through this B and C section. In the left typical section, we're transitioning to a 3-lane section with a left turn lane at the Memorial Drive and Memorial Parkway intersections. Again, this part has remained the same. The part that we're adjusting is the 10-foot trail and the 6-foot walk. And then the opposing side is also the 6-foot walk. These 5-foot boulevards are replacing the previous 7-foot boulevards that we had. On the right typical section of the Victory Memorial Parkway and Grand Rounds Trail intersection, we introduced the raised median to define this left turn lane for additional ped and bike safety. Again, the part that was adjusted is the 10-foot trail and the 6-foot walk, separated by the detectable edge, and the 6-foot sidewalk on the opposing side, separated again by that 5-foot boulevard. Again, here's another rendering of this section. So we are looking north this time at Osseo Road and the Victoria Memorial Parkway or Drive intersections. In this intersection, we are showing the new signal, the proposed median, and pedestrian bike crossings. You can also see the trail and the walk on the west side, and also the sidewalk on the east side. The last section we'll now move in is D, is from Queen Avenue to Penn Avenue. In this section, we have two 12-foot travel lanes with a raised median. The need for this 12-foot lane and 2-foot gutter on either side is to accommodate a county snowplow and space needed to navigate the curve that this typical section happens to fall in. As we move into final design, we do intend to, as we start our drainage review of the corridor, we do tend to look at the median, and if the median needs drainage structures, we need to keep with that 2-foot gutter. If the drainage we can push to the outside lane, we may be able to reduce that gutter to a 1-foot gutter. We also transition the 10-foot trail on the west side to just a single sidewalk on either side with grass boulevards. We are also reviewing the possibility of adjusting the west side on the right side here to make this into a multi-use trail through this section between Queen Avenue and 44th. Again, here is another rendering of this section. This one we are looking south at the Queen Avenue and Penn Avenue and 44th Avenue intersection. In this rendering, you can see the raised median, the 2 travel lanes and the outside grass boulevards, and the 6-foot sidewalk on either side of the roadway. So with that, thank you for letting me come back and run through our proposed layout and section changes. Feel free to visit the project website, sign up for updates. Also shown is my contact information. With that, we will open it up to comments and questions, and we can either leave it at the presentation or we can switch over to the layout.
Hi, Amber. This is Aaron Berger. I saw on the layout that the design speed is 35 miles per hour. And I'm wondering why that choice was made, given that Minneapolis's preference in the city is for speeds to be no greater than 25 miles per hour. I think this is quite important as it kind of informs a lot of design decisions. And, you know, this is like a 60-year legacy of building high-speed roads through the city that the city has said we no longer want to have that here.
It's kind of there's not an easy answer for that. At Hennepin County, we don't pick our own speed limits. It's kind of falls down from MnDOT, and the Federal Highway Association sets those speed limits. So we are set to what the posted speed is. How speeds are picked is essentially they do a speed study through a corridor. So they will run existing traffic or run current speeds that are running through the traffic, and based off the 85th percentile of what that speed is will be the posted speed. So for us to do a speed study would end up defaulting the speed probably faster for this corridor, knowing that there is speeding as an issue through this corridor.
I understand the speed study stuff, but like the thing that is hard to understand is like if you built the road at a different design speed and then did a speed study and found out people went slower, then you would be able to post a slower speed.
Right. So some of it is the existing speed that's there. We need to design our design is based off that, like you said, off that design speed. So we need to accommodate that current design speed or posted speed. It's kind of
we have a history
for
of
the egg.
Racist design, and I understand sort of what Erin is describing, what you're describing around design speeds, but we know that we treat different parts of the city differently, and we know that people are impacted in different ways from this, and to not see the county pushing back to the state or to the Federal Highway Administration for what is a street in part of the city seems really, really unacceptable. That's just, I mean, it's super dangerous, and we're seeing a loss of width given to non-vehicle uses in the plan that you shared, which I took a look at earlier. So hopefully I'm remembering correctly. And we're also seeing functionally 16-foot wide lanes in different portions, and that's just not acceptable for a place that we're expecting people to be able to walk and feel comfortable.
Jeff, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to make note, and I'll apologize, on the layout plan on the far right-hand side down by Penn, the box that shows projected traffic volumes is incorrectly noted at 35. That should be 30 miles an hour.
Yep.
The only segment of 35 mile an hour posted speed would be from 49th down to just north of the 47th Avenue intersection area. That is where there is a change then from 30 to 35 miles an hour as it is currently today. So I apologize for that typo. It should be 30 miles an hour in that box.
I have a question.
The functional lane width.
Julia, can I real quick? I have a question about which elements of the layout would be impacted, if the design speed was actually changed. And a couple that come to mind would likely be the curves, right? And do the lane widths factor into that? Like, I'm just wondering, can you help me and us understand like which elements are impacted the most on, like, if we were to change the design speed?
Yep.
Actually,
I don't handle that one, Amber.
Yeah, if you want to, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an excellent question because as we look at the corridor, specifically the curve down at Penn, it's better than it is today, but the design is really only equivalent to a 25 mile an hour speed. So there will probably still need to be advisory signs posted there to let travelers know this section and this curve is needs to be traveled a little slower than the rest of the corridor. The remaining or the other question, which could be affected by design speeds, and actually when we look at this corridor, yes, the questions about lane widths is a good question, and it was really based on feedback from the agencies involved, as Amber had noted early. Maintenance equipment by the county needs that extra width for that snow plow to navigate between two curbs. Now potentially it could be reduced by another foot on the median, so that far segment on the south could be reduced to 15 feet instead of its current 16, face a curb to face a curb. But again, it's driven by maintenance equipment that the county uses. Potentially on city side streets, the plow is physically a little bit smaller, and maybe so it can navigate smaller streets. But the county's equipment needs that space when they're pinched in by curbs on both sides. The remaining
so this is an issue of medians?
No, it's an issue
is this
of
partially an issue? I mean, if it's a 16-foot width that's needed total for the plow can be going a bit over the center lines, assuming there's no median, correct?
No, this is only in the area on the far south where we have a median in place. And so the driver has a curb immediately on his left and immediately on their right.
Yeah.
Once
so
we
Correct.
what
So-
she's saying
so
is
design,
it'd
designing
be
with,
better to get rid of the median and put those lanes
Yeah, so that we can get-
together and make them 10-foot lanes each with no median.
Yes.
And provide wider walking spaces and boulevards on either side of the corridor. And then you don't have to worry about your stupid oversized plows where you're building a 50-year road so that you can have a 10-year truck plow? Like that's how long they last maybe? Like get down that street? I don't know if that's really good future planning. Do you?
Well, our focus on the southern end with the traffic and the congestion that is currently experienced, starting at the Victory Memorial Parkway, continuing through 45th, and even down to Penn, reasons for the median were twofold: traffic calming, also pedestrian refuge in what is the congested segment of the Osseo corridor. And so the addition of a median.
The medians aren't showing up on the plan that I looked at as being pedestrian refuge, aside from one portion where one leg of 2 legs is open for crossing. But they're not going beyond crosswalk to tighten curb or turn radii for drivers. They're really truncating early, and it seems like the primary benefit, they're not really giving a benefit for anyone outside of a vehicle. And it sounds like they're coming at a really high cost, because I don't see how a 16-foot lane is traffic calming.
So can we take your silence to mean that you're going to go back to the drawing board with this and show it to us next month with a better 30% design?
We are moving forward with this design, moving it towards City Council in January. Like we said, the lane width is needed for the plow width. We also have Metro C line, D line, and 3 or 4 other bus routes that go through here. Their recommendation is 11-foot lanes to accommodate their 10.5-foot wide width buses. So a combination of using some of our engineering design and what Hennepin County uses or recommends we use. This is the design we're moving forward. There is some flexibility in the amount of using that foot gutter and turning it into a 1-foot gutter so that we have a 15-foot face of curb to face of curb distance. We really feel this median is a good traffic calming measure. It helps navigate this sharp curve that's down here. And this is the design we're looking to move forward with.
What is your, at the beginning, but sorry, Christopher, just a second. What is your primary goal for this project? And maybe it was on the first slide, but go back to it.
You mean our goal for the project?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, ultimately the road it's reached the end of its service life. So we are reconstructing the pavement, the curb and gutter, the sidewalks, the drainage will all be reconstructed as part of this project.
Yeah, and what is your goal? Changes to the road to affect what change?
The intent of this is to enhance the safety of the corridor, the mobility, the accessibility, the convenience for all corridor users.
Okay.
I mean, go ahead.
Do you feel that us telling you that the use of a median is forcing a 16-foot lane, essentially, for a plow? So we're telling you that the use of the median is basically negating traffic calming, which in effect is what safety is needed for users that aren't in cars, and actually users, vehicle users as well. So if we're telling you that that's negating your goal, how do you feel about that?
And how do you think that it's negating our goal?
Because a 16-foot lane allows for people to feel that they are able to speed. They have that much room and space to maneuver.
One thing to keep in
And the
mind,
medians are also cutting off pedestrian crossings. So we're making things more inconvenient for people walking. Every place there's a median and there aren't curb ramps for people with disabilities to cross there. Other people will be able to, but if you're with a stroller using a wheelchair, we're removing crossings for most users of the corridor, or at least the most vulnerable users. We're increasing speeds, we're increasing lane widths. It just doesn't feel like it's a project that has people outside of cars in mind.
one thing to keep in mind
Are something that
the median we are also using to help restrict some access at some of these intersections at 45th and Queen Avenue, at 44th and Penn. We are restricting left turn lanes out of those intersections. So that's an additional safety pedestrian measure that we are using. So these medians have.
When we restrict pedestrian access across those streets, it really is not a decent trade-off. We don't have every crosswalk that we should have with those ramps when that's happening. And we also, at least from anecdotal experience, when you have drivers turning right, when they don't need to be looking the other direction as well, many of them don't look to the right as they move their vehicles right. They only look left for their vehicles that are coming from that direction. And I've been hit more than once that way. Generally, it's a slow speed crash. It hasn't been, I've been minorly injured, not majorly. They don't show up on the Vision Zero pedestrian crash data, but that does happen. And I've seen it happen with people biking too. So I'm not convinced that preventing the left turns is actually a safety benefit. To me, that if it would be, it means that the speeds are too high so that drivers are unable to accurately assess what's going on all around them. And it's sensory overload. The medians are not pedestrian benefits as they're designed. They restrict our movement.
Can I interrupt and see if Christopher and then if others that haven't spoke yet have questions or comments?
Yeah. Hi there. Good afternoon. This is Christopher Hofer on the PAC. It sounds like from your presentation, if I understood it correctly, there are three factors that are driving this project. One, the road has reached its service life, the end of its service life. Two, that there are financial controls that apparently dictate that existing speed, including illegal speeds, have to be maintained for financing purposes, setting speed limits and so forth. And then three, the design of your current snowplow fleet. Now, I think Abigail mentioned that snowplows have a life much shorter than this road, but I'd like to turn to that other factor that you led with, that because of finances and instructions from MnDOT and perhaps the federal government you mentioned, that basically your hands are tied. Is that an accurate statement? Is there an appeal process or an exemption process that can be entered into with those funding authorities?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So there is no, I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to check this out. There is no provision that a specific situation can seek an exemption from maintaining existing speeds?
Not that I know of. The city of Minneapolis is one of the first cities to kind of push the way through for changing speed limits. Do other cities in the county may eventually get there? The county just has a different avenue in which our speeds are assigned, and these are all been assigned. And so as of now, I think that 30 and 35 are reasonable speed limits for this corridor.
Well, whether if they're reasonable or not reasonable, you don't have anything to say about that, because you are stating that the assignment of those are out of the hands of Hennepin County. Is that right?
Yes.
Good to know. I've never heard that before. That's all my question.
right. We are going to have to move on. I drafted a resolution, and I want to just read it and see if it works for the committee. I wrote, the Minneapolis Pedestrian Advisory Committee feels the Osseo Road reconstruction design does not do enough to connect neighborhoods currently divided by this high-speed road. A design speed of 35 or 30 miles per hour is unacceptable for a reconstruction of any street in Minneapolis. The design speed should be 25 miles per hour. As stated in our earlier resolution, we asked for all legs of all intersections to be built to accommodate legal pedestrian crossings, specifically the west side of the intersections with 45th Avenue North and Queen Avenue North, and the east side of the intersection of 44th Avenue North / Penn Avenue North. We further reiterate that NACTO road width guidelines for urban streets with transit call for travel lanes no wider than 11 feet in all project sections. This is something we didn't talk about, but I saw in the design that the staircase at Osseo Road is still removed, which we had asked for that not to be removed earlier. So I said, further removal of the staircase to Osseo Road unnecessarily removes a pedestrian amenity. We ask for pedestrian wayfinding to the stairway connection and an accessible alternative. Any changes from the pack?
I would add in something about if the medians are supposed to provide anything for pedestrians, they need to go past the crosswalk and have a cutout for cross and bike or walking and biking across. But I think the medians seem very clearly inappropriate for this design context. So I'm not sure exactly how to put that in.
Yeah, I'll say under the lane widths, I'll just add that the currently designed medians are incompatible with appropriate lane widths and pedestrian crossings.
Is there any way of calling out that? I don't have any sense of what the chances are that we can get something that is not sort of so terrible for walking. A way of, if it's going to be medians, it needs to go through to the, to really reduce that turn radius. Anything less than that, and it's very clear that it's not, no one outside of cars is being considered.
I'm not sure how to put that in a resolution. Okay. I'm calling out the currently designed medians. So yeah. Is that okay?
Sure. If other people are comfortable with that. I'm processing this project.
Aaron, can you email that resolution as you've written it to Millicent, and perhaps we will send it out to the full committee, and if there are strategic specific changes, you could prepare those and have them ready for the full.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard to draft on the fly, but yes. Sure
right. No, totally.
Yeah. All right. I just sent it to Millicent.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. The next project is 2nd Street Northeast and 3rd Avenue Northeast pedestrian improvements from Christian Zimmerman.
Hi, Pac. Thanks for having me back. Here to present you with 30% for 2nd Street Northeast and 3rd Ave Northeast in the St. Anthony West neighborhood. This is just off the river and just north of First, and then University is just to the east. So this intersection, kind of what's on the ground now on the left here, since 2017 when the mill and overlay came through on 2nd, they installed some medians with some striping, and then the medians are just some temporary bollards that are here. There's a bus stop. Some additional signage was added a few years back with the cross traffic does not stop. And this was a part of some safety concerns with the sidewalk coming through, and then there's a trail on this side of 3rd, a little bit of a downgrade with a hill coming through. So there's a little bit of speeding concerns. And additionally, with the bus stop, this helped to eliminate vehicles from going around the bus illegally. So what we've done is, zoom in. What we've done is really just formalized those medians into a permanent design and have upgraded or looking to upgrade the corners here to give ADA compliance. So this design here really narrows down the travel lanes significantly from what's out there, and then also adding in medians that would be permanent with a little bit of striping behind them to kind of lead in. These medians would absolutely be filled in with landscape. We're still working on what that landscape would be, whether at some point, whether it would just be turf or if it's going to be planted with perennial grasses that would be taken care of once a year, native species. And then additionally with the crosswalks, we're looking to mark those potentially with the sidewalk through here, and then with the trail, upgrading to have the ADA curb ramps, keeping the signage that's currently out there, but also adding some additional signage that you would see here, notifying that we have a trail crossing here, and then also roughly 150 feet back would be more signs that would just warn motorists that there is a crossing up ahead. And then kind of similarly on this side, you'd be notified of a trail ahead. Again, there would be some landscaping that's going to be determined at this median here. We have provided looking to do some nose outs to give further protection to pedestrians that are within the crosswalk, give them a little bit of refuge and just some increased safety. Bus stop stays, it would be uninterrupted from its stop. And then additionally, speed limits have been updated in this area. We're at 25 miles an hour now on 2nd, and then 20 miles an hour on 3rd. So with this, we would slightly update a little bit of the sidewalk. There's a little bit of odd geometry that was installed here when these came through originally. So we are looking to try and straighten up the sidewalks as best we can to kind of take out those jogs. Due to some infrastructure that we just really can't get into. Some of the jogs are being corrected to an extent, but wouldn't fully be able to be eliminated, but definitely an improvement over what's currently there. With that, I'll open up for questions and discussion.
Why is it median instead of bump outs?
So bump outs were tried at this location back in, I think it was 2015, and they were just here at this corner and then at this corner. They did have a little bit of success with those, but there was still some crashes that were going on at this location. So it was changed to a median design in 2017 when the mill and overlay came through. And with that, they actually found that we were having better success as far as the crash rates lowering with this design.
But it wasn't tried with, I couldn't see which corners or which sections since I don't have video right now. It wasn't tried with full bump outs, it was sort of half of what it would have been?
So the bump outs existed. So if you would have been heading north on 2nd Street from First, so they would have been in those two corners there. So they were just at two of the same corners on the same on different sides of the street. They weren't at all four. This design here is showing medians on both sides of either side of
okay.
On 2nd Street, either side of 3rd.
So it did narrow the crossing distance. Essentially, it was narrowed by the length of two bump outs.
The original was, yeah, the crossing distance was narrowed with the bump outs. The crossing distance is the same, but we're providing pedestrian refuge with the medians.
So it'll be a pedestrian refuge median with also it'll snub out further than the crosswalk.
Correct. There are a nose out on each median.
Okay, great.
Julia, are you able to, I texted you a photo of it. I don't know if you can get that on your phone.
Yeah, I'll take a look. I'm outside, so. Yeah, okay, I guess I didn't initially read that as concrete, so that's awesome, and that's what I like to see in medians. Thank you.
No problem.
Christian, are you looking for a resolution of support from the PAC?
Yes, I would.
Okay, I'll start typing away.
One thing I've noted is that I just think Christian's done a really good job on this. And if we can start designing our crossings this way, I think it's a really good precedent. Just because of the lane widths, the nose, all of those things. I think this this feels like a really good evolution of our median practices.
The only other thing that I noticed is that there on two of the corners, the tactile domes are not directional, which generally indicates that we have not as tight of a curb radii as would be good for walkability anyhow, and is definitely worse for people with impaired vision.
So
is that something that can be adjusted?
So we're definitely looking at the crosswalks pretty heavily with this, and we're not able to change the geometry of the curb lines with this project just because of budget constraints with this. But we are adjusting the sidewalks of where they'll align as best we can, trying to pull them back a little bit from the curb, from the corner, to give us the best chance of giving the directional ADA ramps. So it's something that I've been working very closely with the engineer of. We are basically trying to get every single inch out of this that we can to provide those.
Thank you.
This is Christopher, and perhaps you just answered my question, but on the two, crossing 3rd Avenue, is that the reason why there's not marked crosswalks of any sort?
So with the city, the city does not mark crosswalks at unsignalized intersections. This is, of course, not a signalized intersection. So one way that we are marking crosswalks here just on 2nd Street, proposing to, is through the use that we are adding the medians, and with this being a pedestrian safety involvement here. So that's how we're looking at 2nd, and kind of moving forth with when we're putting in this median, a crosswalk marking would kind of go with that as kind of one unit, if you want to look at it that way. There's not any new improvements coming to 3rd Avenue. It's not an overly wide street. There's already a little bit of some minor bump outs that are, the road kind of angles that way to narrow the distance on 3rd. And then, we do have the trail crossing on 2nd, so kind of giving more priority to 2nd Street. And also we do have stop signs with 3rd.
Yeah, that's what caught my eye. There are stop signs on 3rd, but no crosswalk. It just seems, it just seems such an easy thing to add that would give some visual clarity both to drivers and pedestrians. But okay, thank you.
Perhaps you want to include that in your resolution. It might be helpful.
I sure will. Well, here's what I have so far. The Pedestrian Advisory Committee supports the design for pedestrian safety improvements at 2nd Street Northeast and 3rd Avenue Northeast. We would like to see crosswalks at the stop signs on 3rd Avenue to improve pedestrian safety. This design should be a model for improving pedestrian safety a lot. This design should be a model for improving pedestrian safety throughout the city.
That sounds good to me.
All right.
Can you send that one to me also, Aaron?
Yeah, I'll send an email after the meeting with the minutes and all of the resolutions pulled out separately.
Great.
All right. Anything else on this project? We have just a minute left, so.
Nothing from my end.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Christian. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next project is West 31st Street pedestrian safety improvements from Amy Morgan.
Hey everyone, thank you for having me. Yes, I'm here to talk about the West 31st Street Ped Safety Improvement Project at the intersections of Emerson Avenue and Dupont Avenue. So as I mentioned the last time I was here, these two intersections were part of a pilot program back in 2013, and temporary bump outs were installed. You can see that in these images here. This was done through painted pavement as well as temporary bollards or plastic delineators. So the goal of this project is to go in and upgrade that infrastructure to make permanent safety improvements and kind of enhance that crossing for pedestrians specifically. So some of the goals for this project, really just supporting demand for safe crossings, reducing the crossing distance for pedestrians, making sure that there's better comfort and predictability of all users at these locations, and then upgrading the curb ramps to be ADA compliant. So we'll look a little closer at what is currently existing. You can see here the temporary bump outs with the bollards. They're about 7 to 8 feet wide currently. There's also 4 corners that do not currently have any sort of pedestrian ramp or curb cut. So with this project, we'll be looking to make those curb extensions permanent. We're looking at doing a 7-foot curb extension into West 31st Street at both of the intersections. We'll be upgrading and installing new ADA ramps at each of the, at all of the intersections here. This project really provides an opportunity for increased green space at both of these intersections, and then looking a little bit more closely at Emerson, we're looking at potential green infrastructure opportunities that would exist at this location. So yeah, that was a very quick overview, but I'll open it up for any questions or comments that people might have.
It looks like, at least from what I was understanding, the bump outs are only going to be built to 7 feet out, which seems like it doesn't reduce the crossing distance as feasibly could.
So yes,
is there something that can be done to increase that?
So the 7 feet, it allows, so West 31st Street is identified as a future bicycle corridor in the Transportation Action Plan. And so this 7-foot distance allows for 2 travel lanes and 2 bike lanes to continue through at both of these intersections. And I'll also note that-
So it's a future project plan.
What was that?
It's a future project plan.
Yeah, there's nothing in the CIP for West 31st Street currently, but it is identified in the Transportation Action Plan.
Okay.
We call it not to preclude future bike lanes.
Is it possible to get that additionally extended by temporary bump out so that it's like a permanent plus a temporary to really help things?
I'm not sure.
Until such time as those bike lanes are in.
Yeah, Matthew, I'm not sure if we've done something like that in other parts of the city. I think it's something that we could look into. I will note that 7 feet is pretty standard for a curb extension. It provides kind of that protection of where the parking exists through there, but it's something that we can bring back and talk about.
it seems like parking lanes are generally at least 8 feet. And just looking at the lane widths, I don't remember offhand what they were, but it's a pretty wide street.
Yeah,
So
the street is currently
being able to tighten that up would be great.
4 feet wide.
So losing more than, I mean, only 14 lanes off is still a 30-foot crossing, which is functionally, you know, the 15-foot lanes again. I noticed also there were not bump outs going in on Emerson and Dupont running parallel. And it looks like this is a curb reconstruction essentially. Is there a reason those are not going in there to keep drivers back from those corners in their parking at the very least?
Yeah, we did definitely explore that, just kind of given budget constraints, that's not feasible with this scope. Unfortunately, we are, however, looking at reducing the curb radii since these are both one-way streets. And so reducing the curb radii on the, depending on which way you're going, whichever way the direction of traffic is going, reducing that as much as possible to help kind of prohibit people from turning there, as well as just making it a little bit more comfortable.
Are you looking for a resolution of support from the PAC? And if so, is there anything in particular that would be helpful for us to call out?
Yes, I would be looking for a resolution here. Nothing specific, just whatever you guys feel comfortable including or what you feel best.
Sure. Okay. Just to the team, would it make sense for me to say we support this project and anything to further narrow 31st Street would be welcome?
I think that sounds great. I think it would be nice to maybe figure out how we can explore. This isn't the first time we've seen a project like this where we're getting bump outs that aren't as significant as we'd like because of hopeful future projects for bike lanes. And if we can start having an automatic extension via temporary means as a standard, that would be great. But I don't know if that's part of this resolution or something else we talk about.
I like your notes, Erin.
Yeah,
Thank you.
me too.
Me 3.
My
Does
silence
anybody
is
have-
consent.
Yes, yes. Does anybody have any other questions for Amy on this project? Thank you for your time tonight, Amy.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. And Katie White will be our final presenter of the evening. She's going to be presenting a 15% design for Franklin West and updating us on the Farview Park sidewalk gap.
Thank you so much. I'm actually going to start with Farview because it's at 30% and I want to keep it at the same level that your previous agenda items have been at. So I'll start with Farview Park. I'm going to start by sharing the street view and then we'll shift to the graphic. So my intent was to show a graphic. Oh, and this is when I give everybody a heads up that I might have lost my ability to see who has their hand raised or questions. So please interrupt me freely if I need to stop talking. So my goal was to show you a graphic that was easily interpretable. However, we ran into some staffing short timing on our end, and I wanted to get this to you sooner. I didn't want to wait until January. So if at the end of this meeting, the result is, no, Katie, we can't take action or give you feedback on this until we have a more easily digestible graphic, I'm happy to take that feedback and I'll see you again in January. So in the meantime, I'm going to start here. This is Farview Park in this corner. Farview Park is in North Minneapolis in the Harrison neighborhood. The sidewalk gap is along 4th Street North here from 26th on the south. You see the beautiful two-way bicycle facility here on 26th that runs east-west. And then the sidewalk gap goes 2 blocks to the north to 28th. And you can see here's the park, and there's a gorgeous tree canopy here, exactly where you would expect a sidewalk to go. And our goal is to fit a sidewalk into the space for 2 blocks along Farview Park North. So I'm going to switch, and this is when I probably should have done it the other way, but I'm going to switch to the graphic now. And it's a sort of an engineering schematic. Okay, and I'll zoom in, but again, tell me if I'm going too fast or you need me to rewind. So here's an aerial view then of 26th and 4th. So again, east-west, the bicycle facility that you just saw, and then the park is here to the west. I was here several months ago, or it was with the PAC to introduce the project. I'm here to show you the results of that. You know, it shows you that beautiful tree canopy, and our goal really was to get in a sidewalk without taking out as few trees as possible because it is such an important amenity. And I'm really happy to say that we are able to accomplish that. This schematic for the whole 2 blocks indicates no tree removal. And the other thing from an engineering perspective that we were nervous about was requiring a retaining wall. This is called Farview Park because it's very hilly. There's a gorgeous view of downtown skyline if you climb to the top hill. But it's very hilly, and so we're concerned about the need for a retaining wall from an engineering, maintenance, cost perspective. But with this design, we've got very small retaining wall, I think maybe 6 inches max. It doesn't really count as retaining wall. So we're really proud of that accomplishment, and I'll show you how we did it. Again, this is hard to read, but if you follow the park, which is the green line here, the green boundary, and then the other side of the sidewalk, the cyan color, you can make out a sidewalk that is essentially bumping out for every tree in this case. This is probably not ideal. We looked into creating a straight sidewalk path. To create a straight sidewalk path would require a much larger retaining wall feature, which would be so expensive as to possibly preclude the installation of the sidewalk at all, given our budget constraints. So I'll move north. So if you follow this sidewalk, which is again green on the left, and then the cyan color on the right, the space in between is the new proposed sidewalk. And as we go north from 26th, you can see that just as the trees are evenly spaced, the sidewalk evenly bumps to accommodate the tree. So here we are at 27th. On the north side of 27th, this dark purple feature is the existing trail path, park trail that exists. It dumps out into what is now just a curb. This curb would then be replaced with an ADA accessible landing. We're adding a landing here on the south side as well, and then updating the receiving corners on the opposite side of 4th from the park.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Thank you. For 2 questions. One is how wide is that sidewalk? You may have said it and I just didn't hear. And the other is that path that it intersects with bituminous, and is it going to be like changing surfaces as you cross that path?
Sure. The park trail is concrete, so it would not be changing surfaces. And I'm convinced the sidewalk is 6 feet, but now I'm afraid I'm wrong. So I'm going to try to find it. Maybe it's further north on the, I think it's 6 feet, but we'll see if the diagram corrects me later as I go further north. So this is 27th. All 4 corners are getting upgraded treatment here. And then going further north, again, the sidewalk fairly evenly spaced, bumps out around the trees. And then this is 28th. So this is the last intersection. So again, we have what is today a concrete trail with an interior to the park access, which currently hits the curb at this very sharp angle. And again, it's just the curb, there's no ramp. And so the proposal here, if you make your eyes through the weeds, is to straighten out the path to a 90-degree turn here, and then a receiving end across 4th. And then we also don't have it illustrated here, but we are improving this quadrant of the intersection as well to do the north-south travel across 28th. This is one area where we almost did touch a tree. This tree here on the corner would be the southwest corner of 4th and 28th. The park board believes that to be a very healthy elm tree, and considering they're still removing several dozen Dutch elm diseased trees every year, their intent was to avoid taking out a perfectly healthy one, and it is quite large also. And so that accounts for the location of this pedestrian ramp here. So that's the short version. Happy to see you again in January once I have a visually pleasing graphic, or happy to take questions now.
If we were, satisfied with the current design and wanted to pass a resolution now, would that be useful to you now, or would it be better for you if we waited until January?
Now would be best. Yes, thanks. And I guess since it might have come up the last time I was with this group, the park board has committed to winter maintenance of this facility.
Thank you. That's great. I mean, I think you're hearing what we think about it right now, which is it looks to me, I think this is a great design. And, of course, having those bumps where the trees are, as you know, is like not optimal, but like it's better to have it closed than to better to preserve the trees and better to have the sidewalk gap closed than it is to have a straight sidewalk.
Yes, I think that it's going to be a lovely, I mean, it's already a great, 4th is a great street to walk on if you're on the side with the sidewalk right now, because it's just a great environment. And I think that keeping the trees there will really be a great facility.
I really like that a lot.
I mean, this is just a huge win to keep
question,
all the trees.
That's my only question with it would be if there's things we can learn from other cities where there's more winding paths for how to sign using tactile markers, that there will be waviness, if that would be best practice in cities that do more for guidance for people with vision impairments or anything like that. But otherwise, looking awesome.
Thanks so much.
Okay, so I wrote as a resolution, and tell me if anybody wants any changes. The Pedestrian Advisory Committee supports the current design for the Fairview Park sidewalk gap. We would like to make sure that the sidewalk is legible for users with vision impairment.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Sounds great.
Perfect.
All right. Katie's next project is Franklin West. Katie, did we lose you for a moment?
Looks like we did. How's everyone doing? Let's see.
We're still alive over here.
Yeah. While Katie's coming back, I'll just share the screen that she'll get to in a second, and we can just take a look at it.
Matthew, do you know if this is 15% is kind of in between. Is this like a resolution or just kind of a feedback session?
I think Katie will be able to answer that better, but I think she would welcome direction now for sure. And then it's more like supplemental, you know, if you want to do it again at 30.
Yeah.
Did everybody see that message that she's?
Yeah, she's logging in.
She's
again,
tried
yeah.
logging in. Okay.
Yep. Thanks, Christopher. While we're waiting, I'll just keep talking, I guess. It's a cool project. Protected bikeways.
There's some weird stuff going on with it in terms of the geometry. Is it best for Katie to answer that, or is there stuff that you would be able to answer?
Let's. I was sharing it. I was sharing it so people could like get thoughts ready, since she'll share it again in a few seconds. But
okay.
As far as feedback, we might as well wait for her.
Yeah, I typed all mine up because I knew I wouldn't be out there. So I had questions as much as feedback, but possibly feedback if it's actually we're seeing what might happen.
Oh yeah, I guess what I'm saying is like let's just wait for her for those questions and feedback. I just wanted to, you know, fill the time while we wait for her to log in again. Are there any other topics people want to talk about until she gets back in?
Ice is really gorgeous, and I highly recommend getting out on it if that's your kind of thing. It's definitely walkable in parts of the city.
I am back.
I took a picture.
All right.
I am so sorry. My Teams entirely crashed. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Well, and so you were doing the resolution, and I heard you do the resolution, and I was like, yeah, I heard some at the group agree to the resolution. And so I was just, okay, you guys are working on the resolution. And then I realized I was the problem. Okay, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay.
Katie, what we learned so far while you were gone is just curious if you are interested in a resolution at 15%, and then also Julia is very prepared with questions.
About Franklin? Sure.
Yep.
All of the above. Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Now I've for sure. Oh boy, now it's doing that thing again where there it is. Okay, cool. I have lost connectivity to the outside world again, so interrupt me. I'll try to go through this pretty quickly to leave time for lots of questions. Where we are in the schedule, we're at 15%. We're looking at coming to you with 30% in probably March. Pretty quick turnaround, but it's looking pretty doable with construction in 2022. So we did some engagement over the summer. We had a survey monkey that had a prioritization exercise and just general, how do you feel about the direction of the project? In the prioritization exercise, the number one desire was for improved walking facilities. Biking facilities were number two. There's concern about safe travel along Franklin, but also across Franklin. Improving the transit experience got a lot of comments as well because Route 2 is pretty good ridership. Lots of requests for corridor greening, speed reduction for vehicles. And we did hear some comments in favor of parking and car access because the survey was in June, July, and a lot of people were becoming aware of the impacts to their lives of the pandemic and increase in drive up or curbside or other mobile services. So this is a proposed
throw in just for the record. Oh.
No, interrupt me. Yeah.
Should I just hold everything till then? For anything about the pandemic, the fact that it's a disease that becomes more fatal with poor air quality seems to me to be something that we need to focus on over and over, as opposed to going the individualistic model that clearly isn't serving us well, but focusing on sort of that collective benefit. And I did note that in the presentation when I was reading through it. Just that, let's think about the pandemic, but in a let's protect everybody way, not individual benefit.
Right. Yeah, that slide was about what the comments we heard from other people. So it does not reflect
Great.
how
Thank you. Thanks for that clarity.
Mm-hmm. So this is the proposed design for folks who have seen this presentation before. I have this graphic up on almost every slide that's going to follow, so I am going to flip slides quickly to stay on time and respect your time, but hopefully you'll be able to see this graphic enough that you might have it memorized by the end. But just to orient folks to what's going on here, light gray concrete, pedestrian space. This dark gray is, the black ice treatment for a bicycle facility. It's not black asphalt, it's a concrete that's darker gray. And then green is the boulevard space. This number 1 represents this cross section here, number 1. So if you're going from north to south, you see pedestrian space, tactile strip, which we'll talk about in a second, the bicycle facility, 1 lane in each direction on either side of the street, boulevard space, some parking in this cross section, driving lanes, boulevard, bike space, tactile strip, pedestrian space. I'll note that this graphic shows the bus stop on Hennepin very close to Hennepin. In reality, it would be closer to Bryant. So that's a caveat I'll give with this. So new components of this, we have a median at Bryant Avenue Bicycle Boulevard, green space on most block segments, a more comfortable pedestrian space, behind the curb bicycle lane on each side, improved bus stops, and we are retaining 5 parking spaces. I forgot to look at the number. We have somewhere about 27 or 32 parking spaces today. I'm not sure exactly what number that is off the top of my head. So the median at Bryant, the median that exists today, this is the Bryant Avenue Bicycle Boulevard, the Loring Greenway is just to the north, bicycle only facility. And there's a median today, and it's basically only this far western portion and this far eastern portion. Part of the proposed design is adding more concrete here to provide these pedestrian channels north-south, and then add a concrete portion here in the middle to provide bicycle channels north and south as well. This would eliminate left turning capabilities for cars in all directions, although it is mountable for emergency vehicle use. And we're currently showing this as concrete. Had a really good conversation with the Lowry Hill East Neighborhood Association last week about the potential for using this as planters because the existing median is a planted space. It's up to them or any interested party to claim responsibility for the maintenance of that space, but we're showing it right now as concrete. So again, you'll see this graphic many, many times. We're also showing an off-street bicycle facility here, 1 lane in each direction, north, south side, westbound, eastbound on each, not on the same, it's not a 2-way on each side of the street, it's a 1-way on each side of the street. So this bicycle facility is behind the curb at sidewalk height. So it's flush with the green space and also with the pedestrian space. We're also adding green space on most block segments. There are a couple of exceptions you can see, mostly at transit stops. Right now, there is no boulevard space along Franklin. The sidewalk runs up on the back of the curb, and there's no plantings or green space of any kind. We're at a minimum of 3.5 feet. Usually the park board considers 4 feet the minimum for planting a small fruit tree, but we have segments here that are between 6 and 10 feet wide. And so while we haven't identified a potential species of trees that is possible to be planted here, it's possible that we're looking at actually some pretty nice trees. I mean, I just got done talking to you about Farview Park. I'm really into trees these days, I guess, but also adding more comfortable pedestrian space. We have 6 feet wide in every location, although I think we get closer to 8 or 9 feet wide as we get closer to Hennepin Avenue. And we're also discussing this tactile buffer strip here. This is still kind of an experimental thing in the city of Minneapolis. The newly reopened Hennepin Avenue downtown segment has this 1-foot tactile strip. It sort of functions like a truncated dome. It's not this bright red color. It's more like a brick red color on Hennepin Avenue right now. And we're going to evaluate its usefulness on Hennepin and evaluate its potential use here on Franklin to include, because the pedestrian space is right next to the bicycle space. And this pedestrian space is next to the buildings, not next to the curb as it currently exists today. So improved bus stops, I'll move from west to east. On the Hennepin Avenue side, again, this bus stop is showing too close to Hennepin. It's really going to be a little closer to Bryant than it is today. Metro Transit's very excited about this reconstruction, and we're looking at pulling utilities to the shelter. Right now, it is just one signpost on the street. Metro Transit is committed to putting a standard size shelter here, and we'll see, hopefully we can get some utility access to them too for electricity and other services as well. And we did some playing around with circulation here, but it is possible to access to get into the bus shelter and out of the bus shelter without running into the bike lane. We don't have all the dimensions here, but we spec'd it out, and you should be able to get out of the bus shelter without stepping in the bike lane. This bus shelter here in the southwest corner of Lyndale will be a full shelter as well. This stop in the northwest corner of Lyndale, this is mostly where people disembark because it is close to the end of Route 2. There isn't really a stop after this except for the layover location. And so it's going to remain a signpost with the bench that exists there today. 5 parking spaces are proposed to be retained along the north side of Franklin. We have put 3 into this parking bay here. The bay pulls the parked cars out of the line of traffic to provide a little bit of protection there. And then we have 1 here where this white line is, and this other white line here. So for a total of 5 parking spaces on either side of Aldrich. Currently, the restrictions for parking on Franklin are it varies quite a bit, and we haven't determined yet any parking restrictions on the new design. Determination will be made later, but if there are strong feelings, take those comments now. So I'll stop there, but I'm happy to go back and go into more detail if there was something that I said that you're more interested in hearing about.
I know Julia's going to have a lot of comments. I just had a question, which is, given the kind of busyness of this overall area, would it be feasible to do something at like Bryant and Franklin, like adding RRFBs to increase visibility of pedestrian and bicycle crossings?
That's a good question. We can certainly ask that question. Yeah. Let's find out more about that. I don't know, Matthew, if that would be standard use. I mean, it might be standard use in the city.
There's likely going to be I don't know. I don't know what the threshold is in this case. For some reason in my mind, I was not thinking that an RRFB would be necessary here.
Yeah.
But why don't we bring that question to our traffic operations team and see what they think?
Yeah.
We can certainly just ask that it be looked into.
Sure.
Yeah, no one's asked that yet, so I'm happy to ask that. Yeah, for sure.
And in addition, if RFBs are used, we're able to zebra stripe that crosswalk. Would be awesome. And prioritize the bike boulevard.
Yes, the zebra north-south here will be striped fully.
Yes.
Yep. Oh,
yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good catch too, Abigail, on that.
I have a question regarding that. It's maybe just broader than this this project, but for example, the block that goes, let's say, west from Lyndale, there's a pretty good slope there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is anything ever done, or can it be done construction-wise to make that slope easier in winter to use or to navigate?
You're saying going north, or sorry, going up the hill or going down the hill, or?
Well, actually, I would probably going down the hill, but I'm just thinking generally. And this sounds silly, but are any places that you can think of in the city steep enough that people have put in, for example, a handrail or something? Because that, sometimes when I get off the bus there, the last stop on 2nd, and I go down, go down the slope. And in winter, and if it's icy, Julia, this this is your matter here. It's slippery, and so sometimes I just kind of pop out into the street because it's actually easier to walk. And I'm just thinking, like, in some situations like that, particularly, and I don't remember the name of the, the Vision Center,
Yep. Mm-hmm. Vision Loss Resources.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, could that be an assistance to them and that kind of thing? It's not so specific to this project, but just generally, it seems like, and in certain sections, there would be something that winter pedestrians could use on slopes. And I don't know what that is, apart from perhaps a handrail or that kind of thing. Is there something about, cuts in a concrete, or is there anything that your experience has shown that can be done?
I just want to second what seconding Christopher, everything Christopher said. I've been in the street on Franklin with my father because it's so icy on the sidewalks, not because they weren't cleared, but because they re-iced. I know people who take the bus just to avoid walking up and down that hill because it feels so dangerous just for falling. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know of a technique, but I'll ask around and look for some thoughts on that. I don't know that regrading would be a possibility because of the existing structure and the need to get down to Lindale. But I'm wondering what else exists.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't propose a regrading. I mean, it's a hill, and that's, I was just thinking, like, if there's something, and I don't know. I mean, because I haven't really looked around or seen anything on I'm trying to think of other steeper slopes in the city, and I'll keep my eyes open too.
Okay. What about some sort of getting variances for properties along there so that they can connect directly to the storm system, or working with them during this reconstruct or the level of work going on to have them redirect their drainage away from the sidewalk so that it isn't going over the sidewalk before it hits the street? Because that's really where the problem comes from, assuming that they've done any clearance and they've cleared down to the concrete.
Sure. That's a great question. I have to call most of the buildings on this project in the near future, so I can ask about their interest in that. I'm writing this down. That's why I'm so not focused.
I would think they may not be aware of how treacherous it can be if they're not actively walking over there. So their interest may not reflect the need for it, would be my only concern.
Mm-hmm. A question on Lindale and Franklin here. So obviously Vision Loss Resources sold, and it's going to be rebuilt into apartments/condos with retail on the ground floor, as well as on the south side of Franklin. That building is almost done, I'm pretty sure, or it is done now, maybe.
Yeah, it's flattened.
Is there a reason why you're including a bus stop bay, obviously, on Lindale? So technically Lindale is still 3 lanes instead of only 2 lanes. And then I know that when those buildings were proposed, they talked about having bump outs into Franklin to decrease the crossing width at Lindale and Franklin, because that is a dangerous and extremely large intersection with really wide crossings. So is there a reason why there's not a bump out instead of 3 lanes? Because the traffic isn't so heavy on Franklin right here that the 2 can't stop traffic for a minute while it picks up some people on Lindale and Franklin.
Right. Yeah, we expect that to continue to happen, that the bus will hold up traffic a little bit. The curb lines are on both the north and south sides are moving in significantly on this project. So the crossing distance is getting shortened by quite a bit with this reconstruct. But you said something about a bus bay though. Were you talking about on Lindale?
I mean there's a left turn lane included.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking north side. You were talking south side. Got it. Yes, there is a left turn lane included because there are high turning volumes of cars who are going that direction on Lindale. Yep. Yeah, I think we did the traffic analysis, and I think 80% of all traffic on this stretch of Franklin is either turning onto Hennepin or onto Lindale. No one's going straight through on Hennepin or Lindale. And
Well, if
so
that many people are turning, why do you need a turn lane if no one really is going straight? Like, wouldn't then they'd all be getting out of their own way? That
I think I see what you're saying. It would, I believe it's unlikely to be able to eliminate that turn lane from this design.
At the Aldrich intersection, it looks like, at least from this design, and I know it's only at 15%, but it looks like the roadway widens randomly at the intersection to cross Franklin.
It's a skewed intersection, so I know what you're talking about. We haven't yet determined the crossing locations here because it is a skewed intersection. It's not, we don't want the receiving end of a crossing to be put in the wrong direction. So that's not determined yet. So if you have thoughts on where the best crossing locations are within those quadrants, that'd be helpful. But I think
that's not what I'm referencing.
Okay.
It's not the crossing locations. It's specifically the width of the road jogs a little bit, like a couple of feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's adjusting for something coming up, but it seems like there's something going on in the roadway width in the diagram, and that's worrisome to me, just since we want it to be as tight as possible at the intersections as the conflict points rather than widening back out in preparation
Julia,
for other driver behaviors.
Are you referring to the southeast corner?
I believe I think there were two places, and it was more just sort of eyeballing the distance between the north and the south sides at that intersection. I believe on both sides, but maybe mostly on the east side.
The intent, maybe it's a graphic thing. The intent is not to widen Aldrich, but it is a little bit of a wide turning radius, which might be contributing to that visual effect. The turning radius is pretty tight if you are a UPS or FedEx truck. If you're a smaller vehicle, the turning radius is more comfortable. But I'm wondering if that is probably contributing to that visual effect that you're referencing. Definitely not making Aldrich wider, but there is a turning radius there.
Not making Aldrich wider, but making Franklin wider.
No, I don't believe it makes Franklin wide. I see. I think I know what you're talking about. The turning radius would, in some locations, make Franklin, I think it's 8 inches, 10 inches. It's been a while since I looked at those numbers. It does make Franklin wider, yes, because of the turning radius.
Is there anything, can we start moving towards just expecting drivers to be more cautious and more skilled rather than increasing the crossing distance for people using wheelchairs and walking?
It's not a question of skill, it's a question of space for the larger trucks.
You also mentioned that curves were mountable, so why not here? Is that not the same?
They are. So at Bryant, this is not a zoomed in feature. So the mountable specifically refers to the middle portion, which a fire truck can drive over, but not a car. But when a car is turning onto Bryant, for example, when a UPS truck is turning off of Bryant onto Franklin, the UPS truck is going to be hitting his tires on the curb a bit of the mountable median here. And so the same thing is happening here where the tires are getting onto the yellow paint at Aldrich. So yes, it's a space issue.
So essentially we're designing so people don't go out of the lanes. Right. We don't treat the oncoming lanes as space that's malleable. We treat the pedestrian space as space that's malleable. If I'm understanding correctly.
I think there's a lot of reasons why that determination's been standardized for the city and others.
I'll also note we went
I'll
pretty.
Take that as agreement.
If I could just say real quick, Julia, we went pretty low, which we should on the design vehicle. So we didn't use. Am I correct in that, Katie, that we didn't use a school bus? We used a single unit truck.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like we went as low as we could for those for the radii. So Correct. It's not like I don't believe they're excessively big.
No, I appreciate that. It's just sort of helpful to understand how deeply baked in different levels of car centrism are. Like, it's something that I keep being kind of amazed and impressed by, and to realize that it's that we can take space away from pedestrian refuge on a corner, but we can't go into maybe the far lane of traffic. But that's an aside.
It's also a good point, right? Like, you're right. So
I'm kind of curious with the parking spots, what we're going to do to make them accessible to people who don't have vehicle access, or to make sure that it isn't like getting into sort of an equity lens and looking at providing, taking away boulevard space to provide parking that is only accessible if you own a vehicle. How is that shifting with the transportation action plan?
It is
Oh my gosh.
6:04 p.m.
Yes, thank you for that. I was just going to say that.
I'm sorry, I think I heard something from Abigail, but I'm not sure.
Oh, I was just letting Julia know that it's past closing time.
Yeah, I was just trying to be respectful of the questions.
Yeah, so I can answer this real quick. We don't have any plans programmatically to incorporate non-vehicle use into these. The one exception is we're really hoping to get some sort of minor, there's sort of small mini curb cuts here in the parking bay to collect storm water and funnel it into these, what I hope are going to be nice big trees here, instead of the water running down the hill to Lindale, hopefully diverting some of the water into this nice new boulevard space. So that's not a people-focused outcome that you're talking about, Julia, but I wanted to call that out as a potential future feature. Hopefully by 30%, I'll know for sure of the parking bay.
Okay. Is that feasible to do to mitigate, especially on the south side, the ice buildup?
I'm not sure what the impact would be on the winter. I was just thinking about for a storm runoff in the summer.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, I have a just a quick resolution, and then we can go for the night. And I'll email it out. But I wrote, the Pedestrian Advisory Committee supports the overall concept of the 15% design for Franklin Avenue West reconstruction. We ask for consideration of RRFBs at the intersection of Bryant and Franklin to provide greater visibility for pedestrian and bicycle crossings, and features such as a handrail to support pedestrians on the slope of the hill.
Great.
And if we want to add anything at the full meeting, we can do that.
Or Aaron, if you want to send the this draft to everybody who's at this meeting, or the PAC members at this meeting, we could always add content.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time and for sticking with the meeting, and we will talk to everybody at the next full meeting.
Take care.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy
Yeah,
holidays.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.